Hey everyone, welcome to Skill of the Week with
Charlie, and this week's focus is beam. Pit block edition.
Here are some tips to be successful on beam.
And why the pit block is your best friend on beam.
Our first tip is to always have them looking at the end of the beam. That way they have a steady focus point and a point to look at when they start and end their skills. We also want to make sure that their chin is neutral and their chin isn't tucked. And then we can also place a pit block at the end of the beam for them to look at.
Alright, our next tip is you don't want their feet together like this on the beam. You want to have them spread out into beam feet. You can start with them having their good foot in front. This is good for jumps and any skill where they're landing with their feet together. And then when they go to do pivot turns, you're going to have them go to beam feet with their bad foot in front, then to high relevé. When their feet are spread out like this, it makes it hard to get to a high relevé.
So here are some things to look for in that nice tight lunge. You want your front leg bent and your back leg straight, putting pressure on both of them, but mostly in your front leg. And then you want to lean slightly forward with your ears covered because we want to keep that straight angle and that straight line going into any of those skills like lever hops and handstands. And then we don't want to be leaning back all the way on that back foot. And we don't want to have a super, super tall chest. We want to make sure that we're leaning forward and putting lots of pressure on the front leg. All right, we're going to go over that nice tight finish that we always talk about in warm-up. That's so important. We want to make sure that they're finishing their skills every single time. So practicing getting that chin up, pressing those arms all the way back in that nice high V position, and focusing on nice pretty fingers. And then we don't want them to just kind of flop out of it. We want them finishing every single skill.
Here are some common arm and leg positions that every kid should know and what skills they're used for. Crown for straight jumps and pivot turns. High V for lunges and strong finishes. T for split jumps. Arms down, hips tucked under for jump landings. Coupe and passe for turns. Arabesque for leaps. Turn prep starting with a flat foot, knee bent. And a turn prep.
When teaching jumps, you want to make sure they start and end with beam feet, and then you want to see their toes push and point straight off the beam. And then we want their arms to land either up, or we can go jump, circle around the side, landing with your arms down. This is because we want their chest to be tall and their hips tucked under whenever they land, because a lot of the times when you land in a stick-it position with your hands out in front, your chest tends to drop and you tend to pike. And if you want to connect jumps one day, you really want to make sure that landing position is correct.
Alright, for our pivot turns, you want to have them start with their bad foot in front on high relevé, and we don't want to see them turning back and forth. Instead, they're going to go feet together, turn, step so the bad foot's in front again, and turn again. This is so that they're turning the direction that they would turn in a half turn or full turn. Alright, for this drill, we're going to make a foam hat. You're going to have the pit block on top of your head with your arms up, and then we can do pivot turns and straight jumps with our foam hat. This helps them learn to push through their toes and not use their arms to jump. And then we can also have them grab the pit block with their hands when they're ready.
Our block stacking drill is really good for keeping that straight line in that lever and lever hop. See how she's at a good distance to where she keeps those arms and legs straight and she's reaching as far out as she can. We want to see that in all sorts of lever hops, handstands, keeping that straight body angle the entire time. And a really fun way to do this is challenging them to stack the pit blocks. A common mistake we typically see is reaching straight down to those feet, which closes the shoulders and breaks that straight body angle. So this is what we don't want to see, dropping those arms. Our next variation from our block stacking one is starting in the lunge with the pit block, placing it at the bottom, and then going back to that controlled lunge. And they should be able to easily grab it if they keep their straight body line and keeping those shoulders open.
Our next one is reaching over the pit block for lever hops and handstands. This helps them reach out in their skills instead of reaching straight down to their foot, which is what we don't want to see. Kind of like this, because that breaks their lever. We can also do this for side handstand dismounts. You're going to use 2 for this one, starting in our lunge and reaching over the blocks.
All right, our next one is we want to put 2 pit blocks on the beam to where they can go in between them, and we want to practice straight jumps in between the foam blocks. This is because we don't want to travel in those straight jumps. We want to practice that nice tall chest, and we don't want to force those hips and toes forward. Our next one with the pit block is putting it on the beam, focusing on nice and controlled kicks, being slow and tight on the way down. Once they have mastered it from their hips, they can go arms in T, pressing their arms back. Then we don't want to see them kicking and then just slamming those feet down. We want nice and controlled kicks, keeping those shoulders up and chest up. And then we can do the same thing with back. This is really good for keeping their chest up, keeping those arms pressed back, and being nice and controlled on the kick down.
Another good drill with our pit block is grabbing it at the top of our cartwheel to make sure that our arms come up right afterwards.